What's going on, everyone, and welcome back. I just want to give a big shout out to everyone. Everyone's been doing a great job with likes and subscriptions and everything like that, so thank you guys. Tonight, we are in the shop with good old Bruno and my good buddy Timmy, which I'll explain who Timmy is in a little bit. But you guys have watched all of the setup video. Well, not even all the setup videos. We did one setup video. We talked a lot about the snowcross sled and that suspension and how that works and the geometry of that. So with that being said, Timmy is the brains of my background, and Timmy was a big part of my car racing. He actually used to race snowmobile ice ovals. Man, couldn't get that one out. Snowmobile ice ovals. He also then went on to be the crew chief of a extremely, what word am I looking for here?
Talented driver?
No, yeah, you were the crew chief for a talented driver, but they were an extremely victorious team in the asphalt modified world. So Timmy was kind of the brains behind that organization. Timmy is super detail-oriented, very number smart. He's a welder by trade, and when I want something done that has anything to do with metal or dimensions or suspension or anything like that, I call Timmy. So me and him started talking about this probably middle of last year, because once I started talking to Bruce about suspension and having the front of the track off the ground, I started getting into a whole nother world of thought process on this. And, then I got, with Timmy, and Timmy started picking my brain, and we started talking about front end geometry and angles of A-arms and so on and so forth. So you guys know, and if you guys have been following along for a while, I don't run any preload on my front springs, because I want that front end to be as low as possible and keep those A-arms as flat as possible to keep that sled as stable and flat as I possibly can. Unfortunately, with doing that, you then bring the front of the sled or the front of the track down, and it's going to push a ton on that center shock in the rear. So if you could see here, and don't mind us, we've been at this for a little while now, you can see our main point of contact is up by this front bogey wheel. And as you go back in the track, it actually picks up off the ground, which is not what we want. So again, if you guys have watched the videos with Bruce, we actually want that track off the ground, which normally you would just crank a couple turns or put some more preload into your front track or your front ski springs. But that's not what I want to do, because I want to keep those A-arms as flat. So the more preload that you put in that, the more of an angle those A-arms are going to have, okay? So how do we get the front of this sled up and get the front of that track off the ground without putting more preload in this? And that's where we came into this big, brilliant idea of building new spindles. So by the time you guys see this, it's probably going to be a little while, and Bruno this weekend is going to his new owner, so I needed to get this done with Timmy tonight. So it's late night. It's a Tuesday? Tuesday, right? Mm-hmm. So what we are here doing today is trying to figure out how long we want to make the bottom leg of this spindle to lift the front of the sled up to get the track off the ground, but not go too far to the point where it dumps the sled onto the tail and then defeats the purpose of everything that we're doing. So right now we have it at stock height. Nothing's messed with the limiter strap. That's what that strap is for, because we were just messing with the limiter strap, pulling the strap up. So right now we're at stock height, and it's just too low. So what we've been doing is putting these blocks one by one underneath the ski rubber and lifting this front end up and seeing what it does. You got anything to say, Tim?
No, we're still in the design stages, but you're on to something. I think it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's going to be pretty cool to
yeah.
this out.
So I spoke with Bruce a bunch about this, and like I said, the only thing that he's worried about is lifting it too much and dumping too much weight on the rear, and then it's not going to do what we want it to do. The sled's not going to handle the way we want it to do. So that's what we're here. We're measuring. We're doing just a bunch of stuff. I mean, eventually, when we make a spindle, it's gonna kind of be a long shot and say, all right, well, this is where we're gonna start and we're gonna see if it works or not. So that's what we're just trying to figure out, where we're gonna start. So we're gonna mess around with this a little bit more, and I'm gonna show you guys. So these are, again, going back to our race car days of angles and everything. So this A-arm, this is a static, sorry, thank you. Static load right now, and we're at 4.8 degrees on this bottom A-arm. Okay, so as we lift this front end up and we pull some, pull that limiter strap up a little bit, we're gonna see where we do, but we're also going to take measurements of the back of the sled to see how far it's dumping on the back. Because again, we don't wanna go too far. And yes, I can compensate that by going up on the torsion settings, but I don't wanna make it too much of a violent ride. So we're really trying to find the happy medium and see if we could come up with something pretty good. And I think we're on to something, we just gotta fine tune it. So again, that degree was 4.8 degrees on the bottom A-arm. So we're gonna do some magic here and I'll show you guys kind of where we end up. Okay guys, and don't mind my bed. I'm currently living in my garage. You guys don't know anything about that yet. You will at some point. But, so now what we did is we cut all these blocks like I showed you before, and that is exactly 3 inches. So this spindle is raised 3 inches. So that would be equivalent to this leg being 3 inches longer, okay? So just to make it easy for you guys to see, we have stock height, and the rear, we're going off of this rivet here right in the back. So the rear actually grew, believe it or not, which you would never think that because you're dumping everything on the back. Front track shock, Timmy was measuring from 2 fixed point, well, not 2 fixed points. What would you say you were measuring from?
From the front bumper by the adjuster strap.
Yep.
Up to the gusset that's on the underside here.
All right, so the front torque arm down to the bump stop. Yep. So we have 5 7/8, and then 3 inches. Actually extended itself. What's that, a 1/2 inch you said?
Yes.
6 3/8. Lower A-arm went from 4.8 degrees to 2 degrees. And then front bumper went from 17 3/8 to 20 inches. So, and again, before I even started this video, we did a bunch of test runs with all the different size blocks and everything like that, and went from there. Then Timmy's like, well, to get the optimal performance out of this and what we're trying to do, why don't we try to see if we pull that limiter strap up just a little bit, if we could even get more of that track off the ground, which is ultimately the ultimate goal here, and not affect anything else. So that's what we're gonna do now. So we're gonna go back to keep it where we were. So this is where I was running last year, or for the most part where I ran. That's where it is right now. So we're gonna suck that limiter strap back up, that 1/2 inch, to go back here, and then take all the other measurements again and see where we are and go from there. So it might be, again, a combination of spindles and that. It might just be the spindles. I mean, we don't know. So right now we're just trying to get measurements so we could decide the best course of action of what we're gonna make these.
And if you also take notice, the 3 inches going in on the spindles were only 17 3/8 originally at the stock height. It should really be, in theory, a little bit more than 20 3/8 because the spindles are behind the front bumper.
Right.
So if you brought that up 3 inches because that was out front, that should be higher, but yet it's not. And that could do, right now, that could be to the load because of our center of gravity and everything's pushing down and it's not letting everything come up equal.
Correct. Correct. So, I mean, it is growing a little bit. It does have rebound in these shocks too and everything. So it's growing a little bit, but for the most part, we gained 2 degrees, well over 2 degrees, A-arm wise, and, just a little bit taller in the front. But the further we bring this up, the more ski pressure it's doing and the more pressure it's putting on this front end. So it's actually lowering the front end and flattening those A-arms even more as we go up. So now we're gonna suck that limiter strap back up and take the measurements again. All right, guys, so now we have, and just to show you guys what we have going on, we have ratchet strap up around the front torque arm all the way to the rear. That's a fixed location back there, so it's only affecting up here. So now we have 3 inches blocks up front. We have the same distance from the top of the torque arm to the bump stop, and these are dimensions now. So as you see here, from just in the rear, we lost a 1/2 inch. Again, we went a 1/2 inch, you know, suck back up on the limiter strap. We're now down to 1.1 degree on that bottom A-arm and 19 and 9/16, so we lost a little bit in the front. Because again, once you suck that front track shock up and that limiter strap up, all you're doing is putting more pressure down on the front of that sled. So that's why, even though it's up, and we pull that front track shock, well, it's starting to dive back down now because it's putting more and more pressure towards the front.
More weight transfer.
More weight transfer towards the front, right. So the one thing that I want to try now, and again, this is kind of what Bruce was worried about, is just worried about too much weight going back there. I'm going to get out, I'm going to leave it just as it is, and I'm going to go up on the torsion bars, or the torsion springs, on one side and then go to the other side. Because this thing wasn't really that stiff last year, and I could kind of work through valving on that with Bruce. So I'm going to go up one click. I'll probably go up one click on both sides and see if it brings that rear end back up and see what it does with the front end. So I'm going to do that now and check back with you. All right, guys, so I went to torsion setting number 2 in the rear. So medium, I guess you call it, yep, it even says medium. And that gave us only an 1/8 in the rear, so not a huge difference. But again, I mean, just clicking that up does not give you a huge, it doesn't make it way stiffer. But I mean, we're probably gonna try setting number 3 just to see what it does, just because Timmy's a mathematical man and he wants to see. But I mean, just judging, and I hope you guys got a good view of it before, but I mean, the front of this track is now off the ground, you know, and it dives down to the back. And that's ultimately what we're looking for. This rear torque arm is still up against where it needs to be against.
And you're planting the back of the track. This originally from the stock position.
You could fit your
these
finger.
treads, you could stick your finger underneath all the way. These were up in the air.
Yeah.
So that's.
So that's what we're trying here. Timmy has a machinist that is willing to machine these for us to try them out. Timmy's been on the search for some, what aluminum are we getting?
60-60.
60-60, yep. And he's gonna machine them out. Southside was lucky enough, or nice enough to give me a spare set of spindles, so I gave to Timmy so he could give to the machinist and he could go through them and really kind of figure out, you know, how he wants to do them. And he's gonna change them, you know, a decent amount. He's gonna change some radiuses and stuff like that and make them our own, but we're gonna try it. You know, we're gonna try it, see if it works. I think it's gonna work. Like I said, because ultimately what I wanted it to do was lift the front of the track off the ground, but keep these A-arms flat. So this sled is flat in the front. Because again, go back to racing, and Timmy will, you know, he could attest to this. The steeper those A-arms are, the less stable it would be, I guess. Does that be the best way to describe that?
By doing this, keeping them flat, you're going to get more ski response on the front.
Right.
So you're going to, you know, you could be, you know, 3/4 on the throttle and everything, but you really should be able to, instead of like plowing through,
right,
this is going to go where you want to go.
Mm-hmm. And it should help inside ski lift. That's my ultimate goal, is to keep this thing planted to the ground on both sides. Not lift a ski and carry a ski. I want these things planted on both sides. So that's kind of what our goal is. And eventually, I might even go with shortening, you know, a shorter set of springs to get that to even come down even lower, or maybe, you know, a shorter set with a helper spring or a loader spring. So I'm not really sure exactly what direction I'm going to go. But this was detrimental in doing these numbers and figuring out where we're going to go. So if Timmy's happy, I'm happy. See, Timmy's happy. So I hope this is interesting for you guys. 99% of the people aren't going to need these, but I'm trying to find that perfect happy medium to where it does everything that I want it to do, and it doesn't even bat an eye at it. So if that's what we got to do, we got to spend a couple late nights in the shop. I do not mind that at all. So I'm super excited about it. Big shout out to Timmy for coming out to give me a hand with this and being my sidekick through this whole ordeal. And that's it. So hopefully we'll have some spindles here at some point or another. I don't know when I'm going to post this video, but look at him. He's already got the wrench. He's already going to setting number 3. So he wants to see what that does. So But that's going to do it for this video, guys. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.